So does anybody else struggle with their sourdough bread? It comes out, it smells delicious, cools down, you cut that first slice and it's fine. But then after even just a couple of hours, the bread is so dense and chewy that it's not really what I'm looking for. I want a nice, soft, fluffy dough that's more like a yeast bread. So today I'm going to experiment a little bit with my sourdough and see if I can get that loaf that I'm looking for. Alright, so welcome back to Harvest Moon Farm. My name is Mickey. As I said earlier, I'm going to do some experimenting today with my sourdough and see if I can get that fluffy, light dough bread that I'm actually trying to get to. So I've got 3 different bowls here. I've been doing a little bit of research and there are a couple of things that I read that I think might help. So one of them was talking about adding some oil or some other kind of fat, melted butter or something to your dough before you bake it to help just kind of help that be a lighter, fluffier dough. One of them said change the hydration level of your dough. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to try both of those. One of them said to, when you're ready to shape your dough, sprinkle the top of it with baking soda, fold it in on itself, shape it, and bake it. So I'm going to try all 3 of those today and just kind of see if any of those give me what I'm looking for. So I've got my bulk, oh my gosh, there we go. I've got my bulk flour container here, which I'm going to need to fill up, but let's see. All right, let me think about what I'm trying to do here. I need 450 grams of, No, I need 5, sorry, I can't think. All right, so I need 500 grams of flour. In each of my bowls. And to that, I'm going to add 325 grams of water. All right, so 325. And then I'm going to do the same thing for each of these bowls. So 500 grams of flour. All right. And I'll go ahead and fill my upstairs container up here in a little while. All right, so we're going to put 325 grams of water in this last one. Okay. So for this one, I'm going to add extra water to it. I'm going to add another, I'm just guessing here because I don't really have any idea. So I'm going to add another 50 grams of water. All right. There we go. So I'm just going to use my Danish whisk get these all mixed up, and then I'll cover them with a damp towel, and we'll let them sit for about an hour before we add our salt and our sourdough starter. So honestly, I have no idea how these will turn out, if any of them will give me what I'm actually looking for, or if they'll just be regular sourdough loaves. And if they are, that's fine too, because you know, you can always use your sourdough for something, even if it's not what you like to eat. Okay, so I'm just gonna put these up like this so I can cover all three of them with this single towel. I'm gonna let this sit for about an hour, and then I'll be back. We'll add our salt and our sourdough starter, and then we'll start the next process. All right, we are going to add our salt and our sourdough starter to each of these bowls. So we want, oh my gosh, we want 10 grams of salt. And I just know this is 2 spoons of this, so I'm just going to go ahead and add this to all of them. And then, all right, so we're going to add and 25 oops, there we go, to each one of these bowls of our sourdough starter, which is right about a half a cup. Oh my goodness. All right. And I'm thinking, I have so much sourdough starter. Typically I will take, when I'm done with whatever I'm gonna make, I will just put the lid on it and stick it in the refrigerator, but my bowl is getting so full and I don't want to lose any of it. So I think I'm going to try dehydrating it, although we're going to use some for dinner tonight. So after dinner I'll probably feed it again before bed so that tomorrow morning it's at its height of bubbly activity, and then I'm going to go ahead and put it in my dehydrator. All right, so I've got, how about that? So I've got, my hands are wet here, and I'm just going to work this starter into my dough. And it'll be kind of, well, at least the recipe that I use, it's kind of a wet dough, and that's fine because it'll continue getting less runny, or it's not runny, it'll be a less wet dough as you move through the process. I just have to make sure I keep these bowls straight as to what I'm doing. The only thing I've done so far is make that one a little bit of a higher hydration when I started. And then one of these we'll add oil to before we shape it, and one of these we will add baking soda. I'll do the sprinkle of baking soda before we shape it. And so I think those will be pretty easy to see the difference. I probably could have made those two in one bowl and then just separated them in half, but that's okay. All right, last one here. And the weird thing is, this one that had a higher hydration seems less runny or less, I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, so these are all ready. I'm gonna wash my hand. So I'm gonna put my towel back over these, still wet. I'm gonna go ahead and put my salt and my scale and my starter back where they go. And then the next thing we'll do is in a half hour to an hour, well, closer to 30 minutes, we'll go ahead and do we'll start our first set of stretch and folds.
So this first stretch and fold, you can see the dough is looking a little bit different. It's absorbing more water and starting to get like it's supposed to be. And so what I'm doing is just grabbing the dough, pulling it up, and tucking it back in. Turn the bowl a quarter turn or so, pull it up, tuck it back in. And I just continue going around the bowl like that until the dough feels like it is not quite as stretchy, like it's a little bit more difficult to pull. You can see when I first start there, it pulls pretty easily, but as I work my way around, it gets a little bit tighter. So it's starting to form those gluten strands, which is what we're doing here with the stretch and folds.
So the dough is getting a better consistency. You can see it's not quite so runny or soft or whatever the word is I'm trying to find. So I'm going to do a couple more stretch and folds, and then I'm going to go ahead and put it in the refrigerator, let it long ferment overnight, and then I am going to take it out in the morning and then shape it and bake it. This one that I added more water to is still pretty sticky, so I don't know how this one will do, but we will find out. And like I said, these are all experiments. See if one or more of them gets close to what I like. And then I can, since I know what I did to each of these, I can modify the one or ones that are the closest to what I want. And hopefully I can get to where I want to be. So I'm going to go ahead, cover these back up, and let them sit until the next round of stretch and folds. Okay, so I'm going to do one more stretch and fold on each of these, and then I'm going to cover these bowls with plastic wrap and put them in the refrigerator to let them ferment overnight. And then in the morning I'll take them out and shape them and bake them. So one of these two larger bowls here I'll add oil to, and one of them I will add baking soda to, and see how they do. This dough is much firmer now. This one that I added the extra water to, I'm just going to bake as is with no other additions, and we will see how everything turns out. thing is my refrigerator is cleaned out, so there's space for these bowls. All right, so we're gonna stick these in the fridge. Okay, so I'm gonna let those ferment overnight and then we'll finish up in the morning. So it's the next morning and I'm gonna go ahead and shape these and get them into bowls for prepping to bake later this morning. Except I've used all my bowls, so let me think what I want to use. I'll go ahead and do this. Okay, so I'm going to start with, I can get my flour open. I'm going to start with the one that had the extra water. I'm just going to pull this out of my bowl onto a lightly floured surface. I am going to use a little bit more flour on this one because it's so sticky. And so now I'm just going to shape it by pulling the bottom up and around to kind of get my shape going. And when you do this, you kind of want to pull more from the bottom and tuck it over the top. So what we're doing is creating a nice tight surface. The surface on the bottom here is what we want to create our tension on so that we get a nice rise to our loaf, hopefully. Okay. Oops. So I'm going to put a little bit of flour on this and then I'm going to lay it surface top down, if that makes sense, so that the part that will be upright when I bake it is on the bottom. So these two, now I need to do a little bit of extra. So this one I'm going to add just a little bit of olive oil into it, mix it in, and then shape it. And I couldn't find anything that told me exactly how much to add, so I'm just going to kind of guess. I'm just going to do a few little drizzles over the top. That might have been a couple teaspoons. And I'm going to work that in. And you know, these are experiments, like I said, so if they don't turn out the way I want, they will still be good. And if they turn out totally unusable as bread, I can cut them up and make croutons or stuffing mix or breadcrumbs. There's nothing that needs to go to waste, even if it doesn't turn out the way I want. Okay, so you can tell this one is not as soft or what am I trying to say? This one is a little more sturdy dough, as you can tell. Oh goodness. So I'm just going to do the same thing. Pull that bottom up and tuck it in so that we've got a nice a nice tight surface to our dough. Forgot to get my towels. So I'm gonna line this bowl with a towel, sprinkle a little flour in there, and then set that one in, cover it up. We'll let these rise for a while, and then we will bake them. So this one, we're going to add some baking soda. Again, I don't know how much, so I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit over the top. Maybe a couple of teaspoons. And then the article said to just fold it over on itself like this so that it gets worked in. And then I'm going to go ahead and shape this one same way as I shaped the other two. I don't know if I'm doing this right in terms of how I mix in the baking soda, but we'll find out. Okay, so I've got that one all nice and tight. Okay, now I just need to make sure I mark these bowls so I know which one's which. So, surface side down in my bowl, covered up. So I've got some Post-its here. So I'm just going to put oil and baking soda. All right, so we're going to let these rise for a couple of hours and then we will get started baking them. I'm going to clean up this flour and wash out my bowls so that they don't dry. That sourdough, any kind of dough, you know, it will dry like a brick in your bowl. So I'm going to get those washed out. Okay, so my oven is preheated, my pan is heated, so I am going to start the first loaf of bread in the oven. So what I'm going to do is lay a sheet of parchment paper over this and dump it out like that. And there we go. I'm going to take my razor blade and cut some slashes into there. So I've got my oven at 475 and I'm going to put this in my Dutch oven. Try and get the paper so that it's not bending up the edges. And then for the first 20 minutes we're going to leave the lid on. So we're going to bake this for 20 minutes with the lid on. Then we're going to take the lid off and we're going to bake it another 10 or 15. I'll check it after 10 and see if it looks done and if it sounds done. And then we'll take it out and let it cool. Heat the entire pan back up and start the next loaf. Oh, goodness. Yeah, this one. We'll let this one cook for 5 more minutes, but I don't think it's going to turn out. This one didn't turn out that great. It does smell really good, but let's see. It's done, but you can see it's really flat. That's okay. We tried. So I just put our Dutch oven back in the oven. I'm gonna put the temperature back up at 475 and let that finish preheating. And then we'll start the one that we made with some added oil, and we'll see how that one turns out. All right, so far, none of these really look that fabulous. They're all flat. This one does look better than this one. This one's like soggy feeling. I mean, it's done, but the dough feels like it's not going to be that great. So I'm going to get my pan heated back up, and we'll put the baking soda one in, and we'll see how it comes out. All right, so the one with baking soda is done. Whoa! So in terms of color, this one is definitely the winner. So I'm going to go ahead and let all of these finish completely cooling, and then we're going to cut into them and give them a taste test and see. Part of the thing, I think my starter was not active enough. That's probably part of the issue here, because I fed it yesterday early in the morning and then started this mid-morning, noonish, I think. I don't remember now. But when I got up this morning, I didn't feed my starter again yesterday, and it was way more bubbly than it was yesterday. So I think that's part of the issue. But also part of it, I think, is just the oil and water differences. I don't think are going to work, but we'll see how they taste. And if I like the way they taste, then I'll do some more experimenting with that. But I'm really anxious to see how this one with the baking soda in it tastes, because it's definitely a beautiful loaf. So I'll be back in a little while when everything's cool, and we'll give this all a taste test. Okay, these are definitely cool. We're going to give all of them a try. Clearly these are very sad looking, but we're going to start with them. These may end up being breadcrumbs, but let's just see how they taste. Oh my gosh, and it's not very soft either. Okay, so this is the one that I added extra water to. So it's very dense. Tastes good, but yeah, that's a no. All right, this is the one that we added the oil to. Well, it's cutting better. So this one still looks very dense. So this one still tastes okay, but it's still really dense. Okay. So this is the one that we added the baking soda. It does feel really soft. It's nice and brown. It looks a little better. It tastes good. Can I taste the baking soda? Let me see. So I think this one is the definite winner. And I think part of my issue was like I said earlier, the sourdough starter was not active enough. So I'm definitely going to try this baking soda method again. Maybe use a little bit less baking soda and stronger starter, and we'll see how that goes. But so I wouldn't call this a complete fail, but it's definitely not a complete success either. These are my 3 attempts at coming out with a softer, fluffier loaf of sourdough. So I'll definitely try this one again. All right, guys, just want to say thank you for watching me experiment with these different sourdough loaves. Like I said, this one is the closest to what I want. I think if I try this one again with a more active, bubbly sourdough starter, it's probably going to give me more of what I'm looking for. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you have any suggestions for how to give me that softer, less dense loaf that I'm looking for, pop those down in the comments. I'd really appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you guys on the next video.